You've met someone like this, calm at the table, never checking a price, never once mentioning what they earn. You assumed a big number was sitting behind that calm. It usually isn't. Real wealth shows up as a kind of quiet, and that quiet leaves fingerprints. Habits so ordinary they're easy to miss if you're only watching for the obvious signs of money. You check your own banking app before your coffee's done, thumb moving on its own. The balance hasn't changed since last night. $1,412, same as yesterday, same as tomorrow. You make a decent living. The number still sits there flat, doing nothing, waiting for you to decide what happens next. Money that works and a bill that doesn't sting. You go back to bed for 20 minutes you don't actually sleep through, replaying the balance in your head like it might change if you think about it hard enough. It won't. That $1,412 is the same as it was last night, and it'll be smaller by Friday, the way it always is. You get up, get dressed, and drive to a job that pays you fairly. That's the part that stings. You are not bad at this. You are simply the only thing making the number move. There's a version of that number that doesn't need you. Picture $100,000 sitting in an index fund, untouched, earning the market's long-run average of around 8% a year. You don't add another dollar to it. In 20 years, it's grown past $460,000. Not because anyone worked harder, but because time did what you're doing right now with your own hours, except it never gets tired and it never calls in sick. This year, the IRS lets you put up to $24,500 into a 401k before it's even taxed. Most people you know aren't close to that number. You aren't either. But somewhere between the coffee going cold and the drive to work, you start doing the math on what even a fraction of that, moving every 2 weeks, would look like 10 years from now. You think about Dale, who runs forklifts at the same distribution center you used to work summers at. Dale never once broke six figures. He also never once skipped a 401k contribution. Even the years it hurt, even the year his transmission went, and he still found $40 a paycheck for it, because $40 now felt smaller than nothing later. You ran into him last spring at a cookout, and somebody asked when he was retiring. He said next year, casual, like it was nothing. He's 53. Nobody at that cookout would have guessed it looking at his truck. That's the part that gets you. How quiet it is. Nobody claps for a contribution that fires off automatically on payday. Nobody posts it. It just happens, the same way your rent happens, except this one is building something instead of paying for something you already used. The other half of that quiet shows up when things go wrong. Your coworker Renee, who does intake at the dental office down the hall, had her car's AC compressor die in July. $1,400. The exact price of a hot Texas summer with the windows down. She didn't flinch. She didn't put it on a card. She transferred it out of a savings account earning close to 4% and went back to filing insurance claims like nothing happened. You know for a fact, more than a third of people couldn't have covered that same bill in cash last year. That's not an insult. That's just where most accounts sit, earning close to nothing, the national average barely above zero, while a high-yield account down the street or on an app pays 10 times more for doing absolutely nothing different with the same dollar. You open your banking app again on your lunch break, not out of dread this time, just curiosity. You move $60 into a savings account you haven't touched since you opened it. It isn't much. It doesn't feel like anything yet, but it's the first time in longer than you'd like to admit that moving money didn't feel like losing it. That night, driving home, you pass a dealership lit up like a stage, and for the first time, you actually look at the numbers on the windshields instead of the cars themselves. The boring car and the card paid in full. The dealership lights are still doing their job on you, but differently now. A silver SUV sits under a spotlight with a payment sticker taped to the window. $769 a month, 69 months, like someone rounded down on purpose to make it feel smaller. You do the other math instead, the one nobody puts on a windshield. $770 a month invested instead of financed, growing at the market's usual pace over 30 years, turns into something past $1 million. The car turns into a trade-in. Your own car is 9 years old. It has a dent in the rear bumper you've stopped noticing, and a check engine light that's been on so long you forget it's a warning. You still drive it to your cousin Holly's engagement party 3 weeks later, park it next to her fiancé's brand new truck, and feel exactly nothing. That's new. A year ago, you'd have felt small next to that truck. Tonight, you just think about the payment attached to it, the interest riding along at close to 6.5%, the 6 years of Sundays it's going to eat before it's actually his. Holly asks what's new with you, and you almost say nothing. Then, don't. You mention, half joking, that you've started paying attention to your accounts. She laughs and says she's been meaning to check hers, then changes the subject to the venue deposit. You don't push it. You've learned people don't want the math. They want the feeling that they're fine, and checking sometimes threatens that. You check anyway. Later that night, sitting in your car in her driveway before you drive home, your credit card statement is open on your phone. $1,400, most of it a flight and a hotel from a trip you took in the spring. You could pay the minimum and let the rest carry. Plenty of people do. A recent look at high earners found well over half of people making six figures are still carrying credit card debt month to month, not because they can't afford the bill, but because the bill never gets the priority it needs. You pay it in full instead. The confirmation screen loads, balance zero, and something in your shoulders drops a half inch you didn't know was tense. It isn't about the $1,400. It's about the interest that $1,400 would have quietly cost you if you'd let it sit. North of 20% on most cards, which turns a vacation you already took into a bill that keeps charging you for it. You still use the card constantly, for the points, for the fraud protection, for the convenience of not carrying cash to a gas station at 11 at night. You just don't let it carry you. Driving home, you pass the same dealership again, lit up the same way, and it doesn't pull at you this time. The truck outside Holly's house doesn't either. You think about your own car instead. The dent, the light that never turns off, and you feel something closer to relief than embarrassment. Nobody at that party clocked what you're driving. Nobody at that party knows your card is sitting at zero either. That's the part that's starting to feel strange. How much of this only exists inside you, unwitnessed, unclapped for, and how okay that actually feels once you stop waiting for someone to notice. You pull into your own driveway, kill the engine, and just sit there for a second in the quiet. It's the first time in a long time that saying no to something didn't feel like losing. Learning to say no and buying back time. The text comes in on a Wednesday afternoon while you're still at your desk. Your friend Casey is planning a birthday trip to Nashville, 4 nights, a rented house downtown, and the group chat is already doing the math out loud. Flights, the house split 4 ways, a boat cruise on the river that one text calls non-negotiable. You watch the numbers stack up in real time. $1,200, maybe more, once the bar tabs get added in later, the way they always do. You used to say yes to things like this before you checked the number. Now you check first, and the number this time says no. You type it out plain. No excuse dressed up as one. Can't make this one work right now. Have fun without me. And you put the phone face down and wait for the discomfort to hit. It doesn't. Not really. That's the surprising part. A year ago, saying no to something like this felt like being left out of your own life. Tonight, it just feels like a decision, made calmly, by someone who already knows where that $1,200 is going instead. Millionaire research consistently finds the same thing at the root of almost every one of them. The vast majority live on noticeably less than they make, not because they're deprived, but because the gap between earning and spending is the entire mechanism. It's not a feeling, it's arithmetic, protected on purpose, one Wednesday text at a time. Casey doesn't push, she sends a laughing emoji, says she gets it, and the conversation moves on without you in it. That stings for about 4 seconds and then it doesn't. You notice that instead. How short the sting was, how fast it passed, like your body already knew this trade was worth making. The real payoff shows up 2 weeks later, on a Thursday that used to belong to your job. Your manager, a woman named Denise who's run your department for 6 years, asks if anyone wants to pick up a Friday project that'll bleed into the weekend. Paid, decent money. You used to be first to raise your hand. This time, you let it sit for a second and pass. Not because you couldn't use the money, because you already know what you'd be trading it for. That Friday, you take the day off instead, one you'd already had banked, no plan attached to it. You sit on your porch at 11 in the morning with coffee that's gone lukewarm, watching a neighbor mow his lawn, and there's no meeting waiting for you, no Slack notification demanding a response inside the hour. It's such a small thing, An ordinary Friday morning, nothing photographed, nothing anyone else will ever know happened. But it's the first time you understand what all of this has actually been for. Not the zero balance on the card, not the number that didn't move you at Holly's party. All of it was buying you this. A morning that belongs to no one but you, purchased months in advance by every dollar you didn't spend trying to look like you had it already. You go back inside eventually, rinse the mug, and glance at your phone out of habit. A notification sits there from your bank, small and routine, easy to ignore. It's just a transfer. One you didn't have to think about at all, because you set it up to happen without you. Automated savings and assets over liabilities. It's just a transfer. One you didn't have to think about at all, because you set it up to happen without you. You tap into the app anyway, curious, and watch the little breakdown load. A slice went into your 401k before your paycheck ever touched your checking account. Another slice went into a Roth IRA. A smaller one landed in a brokerage account you barely remember opening 6 months ago. None of it passed through a decision. It was already spoken for the moment it was earned, the same way rent is, except this time it's building something instead of just covering a roof. You think about Grant from your old job, who you grab lunch with every few months out of habit more than closeness. Grant makes close to $150,000 a year in commission sales, more than double what you bring home, and he spends most of that lunch complaining about being broke. Not broke, just tapped out, always 3 weeks from the next check. No cushion behind him despite the number on his pay stub. You used to think that made no sense. It doesn't, until you realize he's never automated a dollar in his life. Everything he makes passes through his hands first, and whatever's left at the end gets saved, which most months is nothing. This year, someone saving even a modest slice of an ordinary salary, moved automatically before they can spend it, will outbuild someone earning 3 times as much who only manages to invest what happens to survive the month. The math doesn't care who has the bigger number. It cares who never sees the money long enough to talk themselves out of keeping it. That contrast follows you home, past your neighbor Walt's driveway, where a 22-foot boat has sat under a blue tarp since June. Walt bought it in the spring, all excitement, and you've watched him take it out exactly twice. It sits there depreciating in the driveway rain. Insurance and a storage fee still due whether it moves or not. A fixed cost that gives nothing back. You used to look at that boat and feel a flicker of something. Not quite envy, but close. You don't feel that anymore. You feel the number attached to it instead, quiet and constant, draining a little every month, whether Walt notices or not. The following weekend, you drive out to look at a small duplex 2 towns over, half out of curiosity, half because a coworker mentioned the rents in the area cover more than the mortgage would run. You walk through it with the listing agent, a woman named Priscilla who's clearly done this walkthrough 100 times, and you catch yourself doing math you didn't know you had in you. Rent from 1 unit against the note on the whole thing. What's left over if you lived in the other side? You don't buy it. Not yet. But you leave with a number in your head that didn't used to be there. And it doesn't feel like fantasy anymore. It feels like arithmetic you could actually do. Driving home, you pass Walt's driveway again, the tarp flapping loose at one corner where it hasn't been resecured. You think about the difference between the two of you standing in your yards on a Sunday evening. Not the difference in what you earn, because it's probably close. The difference is what each dollar is doing while you're both just standing there. His is sitting under a tarp, losing a little value in the rain. Yours is already at work, somewhere you can't see. Whether you check the app or not, you still don't fully believe it yet. Not enough to stop checking. But you're starting to notice you check less out of dread now, and more out of something closer to curiosity about what it's actually become. Boring investing and knowing your net worth. But you're starting to notice you check less out of dread now, and more out of something closer to curiosity about what it's actually become. Your brokerage app has a chart now, one you didn't have 6 months ago, a slow green line that ticks up and down but mostly just up, unremarkable in a way that used to disappoint you. No single stock made that line move, no lucky trade, no tip from a group chat. Every couple of weeks, a set amount goes into the same low-cost S&P 500 index fund, whether the market had a good week or a bad one, and you don't touch it beyond that. It's the most boring financial decision you've ever made, and it's the only one that's actually worked. Your coworker Bo doesn't invest that way. Bo trades individual stocks on his phone during breaks, chasing whatever's trending that week, and he talks about it constantly. The one that tripled, never the three that didn't. Last spring, he put $4,000 into a stock a podcast host mentioned in passing. It's down to a little over half of that now, and he still checks it every morning like it might apologize to him. You used to think Bo was ahead of you. He talks about money more, louder, with more confidence. But confidence was never the same thing as growth, and the studies on how actual millionaires built their wealth almost never mention picking the right stock at the right time. They mention doing the same unglamorous thing, month after month, for long enough that it stopped being a decision and started being a habit. Your mother calls that weekend, the way she does most Sundays, and asks how work is going, whether you got a raise this year. It's the question she's always asked, the one she was taught to ask, because for her generation, the salary was the whole scoreboard. You tell her work is fine and you don't mention the number on your pay stub at all. You mention something else instead, that you checked your accounts that morning, added it all up, everything you own minus everything you owe. And for the first time, it was a number you were proud to know. She asks what the number is. You don't tell her. Not out of secrecy, exactly. It just doesn't feel like the right thing to hand over on a phone call, the same way you wouldn't hand over a diary entry. It's yours in a way the salary never was. That's the part that would have surprised the version of you from a year ago. The one lying in bed refreshing a banking app with a tight chest. A version of you that measured every month by how much landed and how little was left standing after it drained back out. Income was the only currency you understood then. Now you understand there are two currencies, and only one of them tells you the truth about where you actually stand. That evening, you sit on the same porch where a decision about a Friday off once felt like the biggest thing you'd done in months. Nothing about tonight looks different from the outside. Same street, same lukewarm coffee, same neighbor's dog barking at nothing in the yard next door. But you know something now that you didn't the night you first checked that $1,400 balance and felt your chest go tight. You know the number that matters was never the one arriving every 2 weeks. It was the one quietly left standing after everything else moved through you. The one nobody sees. The one nobody asks about at parties. The one that was building the whole time whether you were watching it or not. You look at your phone one more time before you go inside. You don't check the balance. You already know roughly what it says. And for the first time, that's enough. The number nobody asks about. You didn't get here by one big decision. You got here by 100 small ones nobody clapped for. A card paid off in silence. A Friday you didn't sell. A boat you didn't buy. A transfer that fires off before you're awake enough to talk yourself out of it. None of it looked like anything from the outside. That was always the point. Somewhere out there tonight, someone's driving something nicer than what's parked in your driveway, telling a louder story than yours. You'll pass one of them this week without knowing it. At a gas station, in a parking lot, ordering without checking a price. Let them have the story. Tomorrow the bills still come. The account still drains a little before it fills again. Knowing this doesn't fix that. But you'll check your balance differently now. What number are you actually building? The one people see or the one you'll trust?